I love going back to the streets of Copax, telling other women about, hey, you don't have to stay like this. There is hope. And I tell you, I used to be lived in that Riviera Hotel. I used to live in motels. I used to live in every one of these motels, in and out. And if you want change, change is here. God can do it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pursuit. Jeff Hutchin here along with John Sporoff and another episode of The Pursuit. And we, as you can tell, we've got a full studio today. So we're excited to introduce you to our guests and the incredible ministry they have going on here in downtown Denver. But before we get to that, let's take just a few moments to talk a little bit about our presenting sponsor today. And this episode is being brought to you by Trinity Team Keller Williams. These guys are incredible. If you are looking to do anything from residential to commercial to property management, HOA management, if you're
Let me stop you. You
Okay.
can fill in the blank with just about anything real estate related.
Just about
and I think
anything
the
real
answer is
estate.
yes.
That's right.
I think so.
These guys do an incredible job.
Yeah.
Eric Fritzke and his team are the team you need to reach out to. These guys have over 60 years of combined commercial real estate experience.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys are incredible. They do an amazing job. They love the Lord, and they want to help you. They want to help you find your dream house, property, whatever that might be.
They speak real estate geek is what they say it, right? So there's the
bilingual.
language
That's right.
of real estate that they speak and nobody else understands.
That's right.
They're great at translating that for the normal people like us, right?
That's right.
So,
hey, Eric, the guys over there at Trinity Team Real Estate, thank you so much for supporting The Pursuit. Reach out to them, trinityteamrealestateco.com.
we are honored, and I did not overstate that, honored to have Angelia and Dwight Anderson in the studio today. And so they run the Treasure House of Hope. The Treasure House of Hope. And we're going to talk about the treasures that are in the house. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I would love to hear the story, both of your stories of how this all began. So Angelia, could we start with you? Just where did you come from and what started this heart that you've got for people?
Well, I tell you, I just want to thank you all for having us today. But it started when I was, it don't just happen, you know that. So it started when I was growing up, and I come from a lifestyle of a lot of dysfunction. You know, my mother was a severe alcoholic, so I was 6 of us. And I was the oldest daughter, and it's 4 boys and 1 girl. And I had to just take on that role, because mother was out of the picture. And I was a great athlete. I love running track. I was a runner, and I loved to run. And I had a scholarship, but I didn't pursue that scholarship due to the fact that I made choices to help stay at home and help with my mother in her addiction of alcohol. And with that, I graduated high school only by the grace of God, because I knew I wasn't really doing the things of the studies and things like that you're supposed to. But nevertheless, I did graduate, and my mother got really sick, and I moved to San Antonio once my mother became very ill. I couldn't do anything, so I moved to San Antonio in Texas with my aunt, because my grandmother had moved there and she wasn't doing well, so I helped there. So I'm a young woman looking for hope in something, but I found it in drugs and alcohol and abuse. Was my journey, drug, alcohol, and abuse, and I just got deep into it. I got so deep into my addiction that it just took me on a path of no return. I was at that point where I just couldn't get back to reality. My hurts and my dysfunction had took me somewhere I would want no woman to go. So I was just got on that trail, and my addiction took over my life. I shared with y'all my mother was an alcoholic, and her words weren't always kind. She told me I was ugly, I was black, I was nappy head, I looked just like my dad, I was never gonna be nothing. And that's just who I was. And I mean, these words weren't nice like I'm saying them, okay? And you grow up as a young woman with that in your heart, and you always wanted the love from your mom. You never had that love. You never had that mom to tell you things that young girls need to know, and you just grow up with that in you, and that's who you become. And I became that. I ain't gonna lie to you. I became everything, those words that came out of her mouth that was so hurtful to me.
Well, I promise you, when you walked in, you're not that. When you walked in, I see a woman of God and a man of God that are on fire and on a mission.
Thank you.
And it's really cool to see how God has redeemed that, reversed that,
Yes,
that curse that was spoken.
Yeah. My life was totally unmanageable. I came here to Colorado running from myself. And you can't leave you. So everywhere you go, I was taking Angela with me. So Angelia ended up on Colfax here in Colorado, in and out of hotels, just running amok. And so it came to a point where I started to, take the drug dealers' money and things like that. And I started getting a reputation out there of them looking for me. So kept in my addiction. And one day I was driving down this place, Downey Street, and a sign said, this place that my cousin, she went through this program, and I had been on a binge, and I seen the sign, but I just couldn't believe it was the same place in Texas that was there in Colorado. So I went and I pulled over and I began to cry and asking for help. And didn't go in the program at that time, just kept going. And I started having visions of how I was going to die. The visions was I was going to open a hotel room door and somebody was going to blow my face off. I was going to be riding down the street and somebody that was looking for me was going to blow my face off. I kept having these visions of that happening. I finally surrendered, came to the end, because if I didn't stop, I was going to either end my life or somebody was going to end it for me. I was just at that point where it was like I was done. I couldn't do no more. It had happened that I had to come to the end of myself. It was over at that point. And I never forget the day that I said, if you're real, and if you're the God that I've heard about that can save lives and that can restore, you got to show me that you're real in my life. This is gonna be it. And I never forget, I walked in some doors, a place similar to Treasure House of Hope. And I walked in those doors in 2000, November the 14th. And that's when my journey began, when I let go of everything, said, if you're real, you have to show me that you're real. And I know that I know within me, he said, if you be still, I'll show you that I'm real. And that was the beginning of my new life. That's when I was born again. That's when I put my last Marlboro light out in front of that door. I put that cigarette out and I didn't never turn around. That was in 2000, November the 14th.
Okay, so let's hit pause there. Let's turn to you, my man, Dwight. So share with us your version of your story coming to this point of this moment of conversion. Did you grow up in the church?
No, my mom took me to church, but never, it was never like a serious commitment. And we go to church, then we'll miss about 2 or 3 months, go back, then it might be 6 months. And so, even as I'm from Denver, Colorado, grew up in downtown Denver. From there, then, just went to high school and all those things. And one thing about myself, I was a person who was a people person, but I always liked to party so much, man. And I know that, when I got out there and I started doing those things, the thing is that didn't really have no real strong guidance, no father in the home. Mm-hmm. And so in between those times, a lot of times it was the choices I made. And the choices I made, it took me, was messing up in school to, those last few years of high school. I said, man, I need to graduate. I need to get it together. And so started to get myself together. But, what really was is that I had a lot of that party life in me, the neighborhood. And so I always associated the things in the neighborhood. And as those things was filtered into me, then I was introduced to this thing called crack. And one thing about it, I thank God that he put me in prison, because if he didn't put me in prison, I wouldn't be here today. I went to jail. That was a point that, man, I got a hold of God.
It's amazing how, regardless of people's backgrounds and stories, we look back on the mistakes that we make and the regret that eats us up. And we look back on those years as wasted years. God, how could you ever take a life like mine and redeem it? But he did, didn't he, for you?
Yeah,
And
see,
what did that look like as you're coming out of prison?
The interesting thing is that I had to lose everything. And when I had to make a choice. And when I made that choice and God came to me and he was showing me that everything was going to go, and I fell on my knees in this dream. And he said, let my will be done. And that was November 12th, 1996.
Praise God.
And from there, I always used to hear, once I got ready to get out, I said, well, what's next? I had to go to this church, and it was called Heritage Christian Center. And so I used to hear about it when I was back out there, and I was like, yeah, let's go over. There's a lot of girls. I was like, yeah. But I did not go through those doors until I was saved.
What's amazing to me is we all have a story.
Yeah.
Right? We all have a story in how we came to know the Lord, and they're all so different.
Yes.
But the one consistent theme in each story is what both of you have already said. What eventually has to happen is self has to be emptied of self. That's right? That's right. And that's why I always pray for my kids, right? I pray them for my kids. I said, man, may their bottom be a high bottom, right?
Yes.
May they not get so far down to the point of death or prison or whatever it might be. But God knows us, and he knows what path each of us needs to take in order for us to eventually be emptied. And it's just incredible to hear that from you guys. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So you guys then decide. So you're already at the treasure
No.
house.
No, not yet. I'm not there.
Okay.
I'm in this program. I stayed in this program for a year.
Okay.
It's similar to a Treasure House of Hope because I went through it. It's called, you guys probably know, it's Victory Outreach.
Okay.
And in Victory Outreach, I stayed in that program, and I began to I just stayed. I wasn't going to leave. I didn't care how bad it got. I didn't care what I had to do. It was that point in my life that I knew I had to stick it out and stay, because God said he would show me he was God if I would be still. And that's where my journey started. And I'll tell you right now, it was not easy, So it was hard, but I knew that there was something better for me at that point. I knew it was something happening. Didn't know what. I stayed in the program. I became the women's home director for 2.5 years of that ministry. And I love going back to the streets of Colfax, telling other women about, hey, you don't have to stay like this. There is hope. And I tell you, I used to lived in that Riviera Hotel. I used to live in motels. I used to live in every one of these motels, in and out. And if you want changes here, God can do it. And it was called the Twilight Treasures. We would go out at midnight, going seeking those hurting women in those hotels and hurting souls all up and down Colfax, looking for them, going in there bold, just like you are when you're on the drug. You're bold and courageous. And I tell you what, I had a supernatural boldness that God had instilled in me, where I would go in those hotels and in those alleyways and reach those hurting souls. Yeah.
I love that you just refer to them as treasures, because at some point, right, as God heals us, we begin to open our eyes to the world around us.
That's right.
And begin to see that same brokenness in other people, right?
That's right.
And so you began to you found the treasure inside yourself, and you began to look for treasures. Yeah, talk about that. Is that the birth of the Treasure House?
That's
Is that
the
how
birth
that happened?
of it. That's how it happened.
Wow.
That's where the Treasure House name came from. I say, these treasures need a house. And if they can get put in a house where they can have a clean, sober environment without the men trying to push up on them, without, people bringing in drugs, it's going to give them a chance to get better. It'll give them a chance to have that opportunity to make better choices.
Is it enough to just love on these treasures that you're finding? Because here's the thing. I looked up on your website that schedule, Dwight, and I have a feeling maybe Angelia is the one that's kind of that runs that schedule. I don't know, but that looks like a pretty tight schedule that you have these people on through a year program.
Through a year.
Would you talk about that a little bit? Because it's not, there's love and then there's the work that's got to be put in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't cost them anything to be there other than a desire to want to change, a desire to want to better their lives. If you have a desire to change, if you have a desire to want to do something better for your life, Treasure House of Hope is the place to be, because it's going to bring you that sense of belonging again. It's going to give you that hope that you thought was hopeless, because you come there with that. And so many men and women feel so lost and at the end of themselves when they come there. And to come and see that there's genuine, authentic love and there's hope, and they just started to see that they can do something different and start seeing what the words say about them, and that's who they are. It changes the whole mindset. It changes that, and they begin to strive for more in life.
The identity is powerful.
It's
and you were just speaking to it. Your mom was speaking words of identity over you. Now they were false,
That's right.
but she was speaking words of identity over you, which, as you mentioned, they're incredibly powerful.
Yes, they are.
That's why the word talks about how the tongue is such a dangerous, most dangerous organ within our body, right? The whole saying, and you guys have heard it: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. There's no greater lie ever spoken. There's no greater lie, because you're the result of that, right? Your mom spoke those words over you, and it sent you down such a dangerous path. And by the grace of God, your identity was changed, and you understood who you truly are in the eyes of the Father.
That's right.
But Dee, talk about your role and how you guys came to know each other, right? Because you haven't been married that long. But talk a little bit about that and how you guys met. And
it's so awesome. How we met. A guy. She was the executive director at called Bo Matthews Center. And so there was this. And I was going to the church, and we was doing a citywide Thanksgiving where we take we fill up the boxes, and taxi drivers come up and we just put boxes in it, and they take it all through the city. And so he came up and he asked me, he said, I'm having some problems with the air conditioner that I'm installing over at this building. And so I went over there and I started pointing it out to him. And then this young lady just came up and started asking me, "Who are you?" I introduced myself and, what's your church? Where are you doing? And she was asking all these questions. I'm like, well, okay. And I'm like, okay, so when we was getting ready to leave, but the thing that was so awesome about meeting her is that God told me that was going to be my wife.
In that moment.
At that moment.
Wow.
But
Come on.
now here's the confirmation. He turned around and told her the same thing.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other, we were, okay. But we did not see each other for another 10 months.
That's right.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so when we came back in the door, then, I got this one thing, I took her out to dinner, and, I come back again, we sit down, we talk, take her to lunch. And the third time I come back, she said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "I'm too old to date, and I don't court."
What do you want?
So my first thing is,
This woman knows what she wants, right?
and so, but I came back and I proposed, and so it's just awesome. And one thing I could say, Angelia had a passion for women, and I have a passion for men. And I wanted to see men change their lives. I wanted to show them by example where I done came from, and saying that, there can be something better. And the better thing is Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And so when we came together, it was just a point of, I think how long was it? It was almost a year that we was
Mhm.
together. That we opened up our basement to the women,
Mhm.
the home that she had from
The Bo Matthews
Bo
Center,
Matthews.
working with women out of prison. I used to go to the Denver Women's Correctional Facility and interview the women before they came out to have a plan so they wouldn't come out homeless. And it was like a transitional home that we had for them, and they
So
lived
that was
there.
the beginning. That's
Yeah,
the beginning of
yeah,
the
that was the
Treasure House.
beginning. That was really the beginning at that Bo
Wow.
Matthews Center that taught me how to do everything that I knew how to do as far as going into the courts. I work with Denver Drug Court. I work with the magistrates there as an advocate for people that was real in the worst places, and they would let me have those cases. And those are the cases that I wanted, so we could get them in some wraparound services. And the main thing I was going to get them was Jesus. So I was like, the judge or the young magistrate would ask me, Miss Hunter, I was Miss Hunter at the time, what do you think we should do with that person? Well, they need to come over here so we can get them some wraparound services. But my whole wraparound services was Jesus. And I tell you what, some of those same people are with us today. Yeah.
So you see that, you
Yeah.
hear that drive there?
Yeah.
That's the same drive that she, when I met with her, she said, you need to go over there and sit down and talk with the men.
Men. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I said, yeah, okay. And so, as we talk about people coming in the home, I got to go back because I remember when I was younger, my mom used to invite people in, don't know them from nowhere.
Mhm.
And as I grew up and I started to get my apartment, I was letting people come live with me.
Mhm.
And so now all of a sudden, it came to me. I said, you know what? That's my purpose.
Mhm.
Is to let people come and live with them, and so they can see how God acts in us.
It's discipleship.
It is
Discipleship.
It's true discipleship
That's it.
in its purest form.
Yeah.
You mentioned a term, which I love. You talked these wraparound services.
Mhm.
And so we did some research on you guys and saw some of the work that you're doing and some of the ones you would traditionally think of, right? You have the drug and alcohol therapy, you have abuse therapy, you have some wonderful programs to help people deal with whatever their issue is, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
That's not unique, right, to a program
That's right.
similar to what you guys are doing. So what's the secret sauce? What's the secret sauce of Treasure House? And I think you mentioned part of it,
Yes.
but obviously Jesus is interwoven throughout all of that.
Mhm.
But talk about, is there anything that makes you guys different and how maybe you apply Christ to these areas? I don't know. You tell me.
It's a home environment.
Mhm.
Because when you see Treasure House of Hope, their first thing that they come, they say, we thought you was a building.
Mhm.
No, we're just a house that you sit down at the table, you pray at the table, you just have dinner at the table.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, it's the point of when a person first come in, they do not serve themselves.
Mhm.
The first 30 days, they do not do nothing but
Mhm.
just get served.
Mhm.
First to eat, first to take a shower. If you get up in the middle of the night, we'll get up with you and sit down and talk to you.
Mhm.
And so it's totally genuine love. And it's in a family environment that they see.
So let me ask you, Dwight, Angelia, my guess would be, correct me if I'm wrong, my guess would be that a vast majority of the people that you find in your program came from a single parent household. Is that true?
That's very typical. That's very true.
And would you say that's one of the primary links to the lifestyle that a lot of these people end up falling into? Is there a connection there?
There is connection there. It's totally dysfunction. A lot of times, a lot of families have divorced or they're separate or they've separated, and that person is start to go on their own. Some kind of hurt or some kind of molestation, domestic violence. Something happens to cause them to go to drugs. They're trying to cover up that pain. They're trying to escape from hurts, and whether it was a divorce or whatever it may be, they're trying to find love in something, whether people, places, or things. They're searching for that. That's a lot of people get involved in gangs because they're looking for that family unit. They're looking for that outlet of hope, and they can't find it, and they searching for everything, but it's in the wrong places. And you said what make our program unique? we're not a place that just sit and twiddle our thumbs. Our participants, we bake bread, and our bread mission is where we go out to the community, and we bake bread. We bake these little loaves of love. So I'm sad I didn't bring you guys any, but these little loaves of bread, and we take them all over the Front Range of Colorado, and we go to businesses, giving them an opportunity to partner with us, to plant that seed in somebody's life. We give them the gift of the bread. They give us a $5 donation, and it's giving the participants an opportunity to say, hey, I'm doing something too to help my sobriety, to help my place of to stay. So
It's
we just
twofold.
Brilliant.
It's a twofold.
it is.
I love the fact that, as we look at the success stories, and I'm sure you could
Yeah.
point to 100 of them
Oh, you
by
betcha.
this point after this many years of
Yeah.
doing this. That it's one thing, Hutch, to sort of come out and be independent
Mhm.
and to be free of dependence on drugs, in healthy relationships, having the Lord at the center of their lives.
Mhm.
But Dwight, talk about you're training people on home ownership and
Mhm.
Angelia starting businesses, and I
Mhm.
mean it's transformation is what's happening there, isn't it?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly what's happening.
Right.
And their business, they become business owners and not
Yes, we
Bar
have
yes,
had
they're a
some
business
success
owner.
like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so incredible. You guys are an inspiration.
They are the treasures in the house. They are the treasures in this house.
Yeah, you
I promise you.
blessed this house. There's no
Yes.
question about it. Let me ask you a question on behalf of our viewing audience.
Yeah.
I know there's folks out there that want to help you guys out.
Mhm.
So by the way, folks, I have tasted their bread and it's off the chain, and I'm bummed that they are sold out. I asked
We are
too
sold
late.
out.
That's on me. But you can buy bread online, correct?
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw that on your website. So
Good.
where would they go if they want to buy some of your bread? How do they do that?
They go to www.Treasure House of Hope. You pull that up. You go to the website that says donate, and you go on there, and you have a bread tab, and you can have all your flavors there: zucchini, banana nut, pumpkin, zucchini with nuts, pumpkin with nuts and raisins,
Banana with chocolate
banana
chip.
with chocolate chip.
I
Come
was
on.
going to the
Banana
zucchini
nut.
chocolate chip.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's where I'm going right there.
Yeah, we have
That's-
11 flavors.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you're like, well, I'm on a diet and I can't eat these delicious breads, these guys, you heard them say it. This does not cost the participants $1 to be a
Mhm.
part of this program. And I know money doesn't fall off the trees in the Treasure of Hope House.
That's
So,
right.
folks, this is an incredible ministry. They're doing an incredible work, and they are making a difference on the front line. My guess is that same website you just mentioned, which is going to be in our lower third here,
Okay.
they can come to that website and give financially. I'm telling you, there's no greater investment you can make than in these two, in this program that these guys are a part of right now. Thank you, guys, for blessing us
Thank you.
and be a part of this. It's such an honor to be with you today.
Really,
And you guys are an
Thank
inspiration.
you. Thank you.
Thank y'all for having us. We
Keep
really
it going.
appreciate it.
You bet.
Yes,
You keep it
very
going.
Yeah.
Stay strong.
We
Okay.
just getting started.
You bet. Pray for these guys. That's something else you can do. Pray for
Pray.
these two.
Great. Yes.
Pray for their ministry,
Yes.
and that God would continue to pour out His favor, blessing, protection, provision over everything these guys are doing.
Mhm.
Hey, thank you for joining us. Everybody, thank you for joining us on The Pursuit. We'll see you next time.